this spam, so.
Yeah, it did go to spam.
So how have I got it there?
Let me make sure.
Do you check spam?
Yeah, I did. It's not in there.
Greenhill.docs.ld, right?
Yeah, Gmail.
I can make a speech prompt too.
I can close restart my email. See if that if not, I can just I think it's loading. Okay, sure. Let's just do speech shot.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, tell me when your guys are ready for the code.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, lowercase m, capital Q, lowercase o, lowercase t.
Oh, yeah, I just got it.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect.
That's what happened at all my last rounds.
Okay. Can I borrow your stand, by the way?
Yeah, sure.
That's gonna be too tall. I'll just use the chair.
If you need a lower, it's fine.
Oh, you sure? Okay.
Yeah. Always. It's the exact same.
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I'm good with lower.
Anyone not? The advantage is Red Sea escalation. War is imminent. The Red Sea is the key hotspot to escalate far. Middle East and USD Iran war plan. 1-2 Red Sea leads to wider conflict in Gulf and Middle East. Gaza is not precipitated. Middle East conflict priming the East and Iran. The center of the dangers in the Red Sea. USD able forces across the line, killing all who on Houthi boats, 17 attacks on vessels. US Navy fired on 12 boats, making a new base. Most believe attacks become mercenary of cities. Normalized with Iran used to complicate that effort. Operation Prosperity Guard. Most countries contribute on the Bahrain is the only air country joining our escalation to bolster Iranian influence. Looking towards regional war. The cliff edge could quickly crumble away. If the threat in the Red Sea continues to these, no sign of need to turn off. Stopping America mobilizing the entire world. US heightening tensions with Iran, pretty wider confrontation. Presence is the key internal link. It causes cascading militarization that escalates and draws in global nuclear powers to deck. 3-6. Gaza project increased military presence from the U.S. to thwart with the assault. U.S. postal Red Sea operation. American presence predates Gaza trained warship pending. Crisis lacking decimal fleets. American and European forces during online trade fleet after the Russian presence. Demise Russian lines. Front. Army military military capabilities. Leverage allied against and Israeli. Just explaining enemy competition with China and Russia. Are scheming with access security. Middle East front against both powers. Russia enabled to receive these militarization. Transform into confidence. Reduce Iran reinforcement. Provoke Iranian transmission. Caution any effort to save foreign navigation. Counter-security jobs. Compromise regional stability. Defense is wrong. The Red Sea is uniquely escalatory. It draws in other countries due to navigation. Interest Romney. 1-8. Hamas laid the groundwork for a new military exchange. Red Sea. Iran proceeds such fragmented by confrontation, increasing military attack more nation. That's the conflict states not plans by the U.S. security entry, reflecting the official parts of the joint task force of inside Iran response to states and Nazi actors. Red Sea precursor to additional destabilizing acting, security navigation as a legitimate justification for modern conflict, destruction, interdependence, so great power competition, pathway to wider conflict with these assaults on vessels and the Red Sea influences the military action, international causes risk. It's uniquely likely to escalate and draw in Iran. We 328. Today's crisis is markedly different. Russia, China support us serve Iran between the proxy attacks with the rebels, weapons, post-attack challenges, targeting launches, Yemen, similar conflicts, trying to conceal these weapons and terrain. Nothing likely that Houthis based on slow contact America will want their behavior, and extend increase the legitimacy. Iran will not escalate these sustaining Iran's credibility. Iran not escalating ICAA, these resistance now. Does not let the Iranian regime strikes up. Fail to stop who the United States should be less than taking about their ability to control escalation. Who these so more times than the proxy could the attacks go too far to Iran. What a risk of action to preserve the cohesion of acts resistance, the conceiving nature of the Iran Iraq war, and able use military operation to halt Iranian attacks from our own investment enabling linked to broader conflict. Russia gets drawn in as well. Abadulani 3-6. Iran's decision to send missiles to retaliate on present level cooperation to start invasion of Ukraine. The new fall down natural virus security in Iranian counterpart of a bilateral relationship. Russia warned Ukraine that the Moscow's needed missiles to be fought to response to Iran's high-tech weapons war for Iran. Russian money has been to broader level cooperation. Russia could have gone on with increased presence use in the Middle East. Moscow to defend the nuclear no longer replace Iran, developing nuclear capability. Russia could Iran as a to retaliate against the U.S. That triggers nuclear war. Lopez 23. U.S. critical ingredient to gore Iran Iran's vicious response continue to attack Iran, taken up by Iran and Islamic plus Iran's foreign Russia will come into blow war fall of Iran into fall Russia response to good China long time on order to the United States to Russia China Iran into gore reality or survival. Cyber war, actually skip that for now. Deterrence fails, the U.S. strikes emboldened through the aggression, draws in Israel, destroys the enemy peace, Al Muslimin 112. Houthis won't back down for tracks with a regionalized Yemen civil war, delayed the factor process, a structure, surviving the attack on Houthi operation. Houthis farmers have been prepared, well equipped, highly trained tables, and receiving drawn towards the road, and it's forced to develop the system, accessibility, international support for the existing attacking Houthi support for their effort checks, have the opposite by why Houthi campaign shots as the objective war, and the colleague think these shots was impossible, until now Houthi attacks not, affect Israel should the US tries to provoke a regional escalation that would change Israel, like Houthi leadership. That kills the Yemen peace process, Latin 124 by structure, on the leader but they underpin a deal to end Yemen's civil war structure, a significant escalation, US community directed good war against Iran proxy has its own motivations to American Yemen use both Houthis gain support, Red Sea Canadian public, recruits or military tax destruction of the Yemeni peace process, there have been negotiations between Saudi and Houthis and war within Yemen, produced less permanent ceasefire. The Houthis had compromised as a challenge to this to realize response to strikes on Yemen, comfort trade, avoiding escalation back to the Houthis by this expand use and have placed PLC with humanity militarily defeated. Sustained talks are the only path to regional peace. Start 23. Diplomacy is working in Yemen, substantial positive fighting between Houthis and Saudi to result in sustained negotiation dialogue, at least peace negotiation. Neither Houthis nor Saudi had launched cross-border attacks, regional de-escalation restriction on imports. No, a longer truce open space to addressing issues. Saudi officials direct talks with the Minister of Trade, freedom, 900 detainees, US advanced mediator to more durable peace relations with Saudi and Yemen to negotiate credible security entities, use for critical negotiating progress, one is used to better lecture remain engaged patients, and by elected marks all cognitive continues to draw regional action back and use to understand these for inclusive political progress. Otherwise, Yemen escalates regionally, start 22 balls in Yemen, start to spill over to Gulf Saudi, later attacks, 60 damage, communication, UAE, use and intercepted missile check and escalation, but the one believes to have momentum to address the best way to de-escalate Saudi, the war UAE's involvement in UAE side recording operation, facilitating reloading of escalation over to other regional issues, and Iran command control over the Houthis, the pressure from hard-left Houthis as they attacked in Iran relation, but not the acting attack the Houthi. There's something that's been with the Hopper Rock and Warrior, which is real, remains on the table. That causes extinction from nuclear war. Start 22, nuclear flash hurricane. Of course, no one will survive nuclear flash on Kansas, super up 20 million tons of smoke around the rest of the level of tractors around the other plastic presenting sunlight, not render predicted long reason, cold weather from spreading healthcare from starvation, nuclear mass extinction event. Thus, the plan, the United States ought to substantially reduce its military, maritime defense, and security strategy forces in the Red Sea region to clarify maritime defense and security strategy forces, or any forces, including air and naval forces, whose purpose is to defend assets in the Red Sea maritime, review not maritime security, and activities in maritime terrorism, WMD, entails enforcement maritime and terror on and protecting sea lanes, communication, database, force, and command ships. Framing extinction comes first under any framing future value magnitude and risk parity corner. Continue the other version of this. I'll get the future has a little there, showing the future people not consequential, not to use the latter as an implausible. First, must be considered part of promoting the good from one center that will be in Russian civil will start reducing except for most important. Thus, the standards of consistency with hedonistic active utilitarianism are maximizing expected well-being for one active specificity, age aggregation, every policy benefits on the horizontal. The only way to resolve trade-offs is to value every equally calculate. Negative B is no kind of participation, perceive constant required deliberation, making to action independent. Having two is no activation. Distinction A psychology is an act self-harm society, not talking human beings that with choice creates a choice between two actions, neither of which is mission. B is actor specificity. Governments are culpable for missions because their purposes to protect the contingency, otherwise they have no obligation to make murder illegal. Only neutral can escape culpability in the instance of trade, i.e. resolve the problem because the level they were clearly responsible for regardless actor specificity outweighs because different agents have different ethical standards, ethical obligations, and considerations. The method, instead of homogenizing broad theories, prefer the abstract form of imminent critique, locating possibilities for training within existing orders. Contextual application of the theory are best, writing McDonald 13. Moving beyond universalized assumptions to gauge a context-specific analysis, politics using the critical theoretical tool of imminent critique looking possibilities for progress to change existing social political orders. There are different logical effects, synchronization, failure to differentiate between differences, varying from different actions and different problems. Like universalizing the politics of organizing concepts solving and solving them relating to others very differently. The synchronization for request which wants analysis for social historical political context that focus in the context of which degree is going to go back to the advantage. Stats flow conclusively ash, strikes worsen conflict and fail to deter Pilkington. 226 airstrikes aren't working. Houthis Chinese UUV drones shooting guard hydrogen operation concentrated on belly impact attacks the number of different dimensions of the attacks of which they don't touch you. So how these structures can radical only increase the effect.
You read every card except for the cyber workers.
I didn't read cyber workers, and I did not read the last.
The last part I did it. Okay, cool. You get third cross.
Yeah.
Sure. What is like military? Where do we have military maritime defense?
Well, we have it in the Red Sea, and examples like the Sultan.
So is it only banning like U.S. ships who are attempting to deter like?
So it would be U.S. ships and anything that is used to protect those assets. An example of that would be like the Sultan Air Base, which is in Saudi Arabia, that we use to protect assets in the Red Sea.
Okay, cool. But so what are security strategy forces?
What are security strategy forces?
Yeah.
Forces in place to protect security.
Okay, maritime security, is it just like troops or does it include ships or what does that entail?
Well, there's troops that man the ships, we would get rid of both of them. Because the
so like you get rid of
the
the troops and then the ships. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
That works. And then does it reduce all of the ships in there or are there still ships left?
I mean, like, substantially reduces them. I think anything beyond.
Well, like how, like if the affirmative leaves some in the region, how would it solve the advantage?
Well, like, I don't think the affirmative, like, I don't think it's a relevant question. If you're using it for a topicality violation.
So I'm asking you how, if you do
sure.
not fully reduce it, how would you select the advantage?
Like, I feel like that's a question you could ask any app. Like, if you don't substantially reduce it and you leave some troops, how does that
Well, yeah,
work?
everything is about why it
yeah,
is.
let me clarify. We would
The
stop.
app is about why deterrence is inherently destabilizing, meaning
Yes.
if you leave some, it would still
So I'll
induce
explain.
the
We
same
would
effect.
stop any strikes that are occurring against Houthi vessels, any strikes that are occurring in response to Houthi vessels, all of that.
But, so you eliminate it? Or, like, I'm confused
So
how
your
you
first
could-
question is if you don't fully get rid of it, then how do you solve it? Now your next question is like.
Right,
how do
yeah,
you-
that's what I'm
like,
confused.
I'm
Alright, that's
very
fine.
confused.
Okay, the, like, Yemen deal, why is the United States key to broker peace deals?
Sure. The argument is not the argument. There's two internal links to that. The first is that the United States is capable of bringing both sides to the table.
Why is the United States uniquely positioned to do so?
Why? Well, the United States historically has been positioned to do so.
Because it's historically been petitioned
Like, I think it would.
to do so.
So-
Why is that true?
Quote from the 1AC Stark evidence: the 2022 truce would not have occurred without the leadership of the UN and with the support of United States diplomacy.
And sure, but like, what makes U.S. diplomacy valuable?
Because the United States is the only actor capable of bringing both
The
sides
only
to the
actor
table.
capable of bringing both sides to the table.
Uh-huh.
Does that so the United States would then like include countries like Yemen and countries in the Middle East to discussions in the Middle East?
Well, I think you're talking about something much broader than the act. The Yemen peace deal is a very specific thing referring to a civil war that's taking place in Yemen between the PLC and the Houthis, who have fragmented control of Yemen in the status quo.
Okay, sure. Why does deterrence fail?
Sure, so many different reasons. First, no one believes in the United States as a credible ally. Our evidence indicates that the United States created Operation Prosperity Guardian. No one joined onto that, which proves that allies don't believe in it. Second, after the
why
United
does Russia get drawn in?
Russia gets drawn in because of tit-for-tat exchanges. Our argument is that the presence of the United States means that Russia feels threatened in the region, which incentivizes them to get involved, and because Russia is backing Iran, who are supporting the Houthis.
Cool. 2 off. Case. Case will be the method.
Sounds good.
Doc said. Did you get it?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't checked. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Interpretation substantial reduce means 25% or DOD donate mutual defense substantial reduction means 25% more, and substantial reduction is at least 25%. AEC for donate reduction less than 25% is not substantial reduction, and the app must reduce US bills defense by at least 25% violation. They have to reduce by 11,350 troops. The violation is inserted. There are no troops in Red Sea. Only naval presence at Ibrahim and Alawi 24 is inserted. Military presence measured by boots on the ground. Intensive 5 and through the RAF IRC RT 20. Military presence vote discussion on expert presence repeat records for occupation according to extra records for number of boots on the ground. Necessity of troops on the ground with German held by rejection of naval power vote -1 of its air score. The core of the tougher, tall, unobjectable trees military posturing. The House is negative preparation for the CC topic. No functional limits. Only be a specific definition about the topic. You still get the China of it. Limited engagement with 3 specific counter operations. Low countries limited limits controls fairness education less than generate good private sports. You have to defend the position well researched objection. Absolute voter only exportable. A benefit debate 2 grounded topic literature core of the topics by use overall posture trying to water inter preserves absolute ground of the topic China. Pivot away both restrain when you gave it this police specific kinds of operations counter terror Gulf country necklace. The big tiny asset will link to court generic terrorist insurance prolific terror oil price and retail security all that keep it huge present shift the debate and create even worse generics at topic yet 3% test are key anything else is arbitrary based words substantial meaning this by judge intervention means there's no stable basis for purposes of no objective way to determine what is topical reject counter term does not percentage test fair division 1 nor be gateway 2 T's prerequisites educational debate W topical not mean when 2 T for everything else is by prerequisite models and debate T is the highest level since the question of the topic which means they did to be first use competing interpretation these arbitrary methods only evaluate whose model is better for debate 4 drop the debater they can't drop the next off. The failures of IR produce an existential public crisis produced by investments, U.S. supremacy. The 1C security framework fails because they not explicitly forefront analysis, racial colonialism, projector, appeal to security, future to black and indigenous deaths, academia, 20 work global racial, political, constitutional environment for all kinds of health, racial violence, work, police violence, economic inequality, climate change will suffer more structural basis and foundational international order with society, the advocate, colonial space, and political colonial system, to mobilize fear of loss, suggesting civilization at any point degenerate into war, academic suicide, rhetorical strategies, race thoughts, and tribal balance to underrate the sovereign, data paradigm, background, modern sovereignty, because it's ongoing phenomenon, ways up receives inflation origin, the individual of race and race quantified and reduce African property, the global system, life under international order, the province ultimate debate of security, race sovereignty, mutually constituted exercise of sovereignty, continue global racial hierarchy, international order, races, ever present, shadow western political thought when it comes to imagining humanity, of foreign people, political, financial, climate change, anthropogenic activities, damaging the blend to a point where the ability of ecosystems to sustain future generations can no longer be taken for granted. Inflation, food insecurity, energy crisis, price pressure, geopolitical competition, breaking down security, creating permanent crisis, born Ukraine coups in Africa, Hamas attack less, able conventional and collective frameworks able to respond. Our arrangements cannot be run only through Western lens. Permanent crisis have enormous dimension uncertainty, which is emerging new normal demands, collective response, colonialism, and structurally integral global political power. And the one who sees this systematic politics of forgetting, which reproduces hierarchies to justify other imperial projects, Lincoln, and the perm are premise on liberal values that are a premise on racial exclusion, academia, 24, colonialism, capitalism, linked through imperial expansion, colonialism, and gender racialized patterns of conflict, and analytic misses that race plays a key role in exporting because the liberals have colluded with forces, exclusion, imperial slavery, racism, and sexism ideas, groups of like-minded to ensure identity regimes to Western intellectual frames, leverage to centralize and security of the club and dire consequences of those outside the order, exercise of liberalism, and trench racial hierarchies and color language accords. The club with its white even substantial anti-racist war not possible to redeem liberalism's operational concept of racism is how the United States protects the security, West balance of power, our really society notions of mission of security to protect dominant power relations to primary assumption to reception, challenging assumption requires different perspective, toss systematic policies, free and willful and Nietzsche and question race and attempts to stabilize international order relies on a false notion of equilibrium and resilience which uses to failure Chandler 22 years subject approach resilient for world capacity resilience assumes the goal stability to take the world as a status quo the aim is to minimize the conflict bounce back to normal differing speed of reaction playable to returning normal as part of the problem world versus society and side effects were more of a consequence of intended side effects, uncertainty, more open to crucial to open framings for Western policy, and somebody centralized, regulated from above, easy to consider non-equilibrium approaches, not scientific drop on none, Eurocentric frame policies of automated response barriers, but passing these vital keep changes cannot be predicted beforehand, but there is no one-size-fits-all approach, not far, dominant Western policy frame maintains stability where other understanding autonomy highlighted through passing practices generate greater knowledge of relations rather responding to repetition of laws, and the one who sees futurity politics is bound to politics of hope that seeks to send the survival aids black global order by imagining a sovereign master to adapt to insecurity and uncertainty, the maintenance of the historical dream reinforces violence, Chandler, and Zapato 22 futurity seeks to affirm survival, constructing humans capable of resilience, words understood as adaptation, insecurity, uncertainty, or all that there can be lack rising, can be followed less affirmative, living in a visible catastrophe based on the Indian world's foundation against black forces, subtracted by the repairing the black region, relies on the maintenance of the world, and how anti-blackness be no world politics of hope out of metaphysical violence, who aspirates the solution, problem anti-blackness, work in utopian futurity, negation rather affirmation, black confusion, respects sovereignty, creates return rather producing affirmative vision, negating the black horizon, create possibility for our debates, and the one who sees fear of Russia is driven by an attempt to reach Russian superiority and exceptionalism, deepening Cold War antagonism habit as a result of the attempting to tame and hold back Russia, which causes lash out and escalation, Sakwa, 22 lock into Russian phobia, irrational fear of Russia, response was often exaggerated, counterproductive, absorbed by long-term cultural phobias, geopolitical arrogance, fed into the Russian polity, provoked reaction, fully exasperated, security, political threats, even Cold War attacks in Russia, the United States mission to civilize and tame Russia, resisted by Russia was there deemed civil, the idea of aggression, heritage of Russia, which follows historical myths, internal action of egregiously malevolent than any other Western media shows Russia to the enemy, for reason outside the image of the West has of the war Western clarifies from psychological demonization, Russia and West enhances the resources by believing the other and vote negative to refuse the one he sees, racial ignorance in favor of deconstructing white IR, permanent attempts to redeem and modify whiteness, which links even harbor subterranean 20, but we need to imagine this idea mythology, center both require epistemological situations, require alertness and cultural zero, centrism, choosing whiteness, loyalty, and many principle not build ground for redeem and modified whiteness, but totally deconstructs it analytically and ethically resource of great power to be possible, so explicitly studying that empire and other politics have to embrace internal diversities, more attention, we need to be paid a course of naval and production of otherness, all parts would have to be informed by hermeneutics, system, no whole trigger, which makes versus racist ignorance impossible in absence, our deal will continue to white, and in terms of what he sees the racial product against epistemology, speaks scrutinized prior to the consequences of the plan that have benefit, it's understanding the ways race influences global formations and power in IR, there's a sufficient class where their attempt to exclude debates over race and IR must be rejected for its preservation, white supremacy, if you have a illusory link, impact terms of skills and fairness wrong, ER perspectives, results, ground predictability, Abu Bakari, 20, studies requires acknowledging IR's critical space race and continued higher research division wide non-white population, request to allocate analysis race elsewhere, avoided simplifying political circumstances, white request to allocate discussion race elsewhere, reach with epistemological terms and prop up hierarchy of human issues, when epistemological white is norming against noticing how conversations of race come to systematically be pushed in margin. Now, kids, the method. Browning and McDonald improves our link argument if they extend it, so you have to be able to answer where and the one is needed. done the identitary analysis they claim they're doing, and if it becomes a race in the one yard proves they systematically erase discussions of it from the one you see, which proves a research project in Big Rojas. It's wrong. The after spills out and calling the affirmative anti-war activism a stolen valor when you say in here will not meaningfully implicate American materials and pretending it does is bad. That's our link argument about depoliticization above Goldberg. Absent and challenge racialized frames by R, the affirmative is not transformative. Their hope begins with the desire to save an anti-black global order that you should be deeply skeptical of. That's the Chandler link. And promising her the break of extinction round after round is damaged by centralized blame in mankind for anti-protagonist world. Either the reps are true, or they turned all of our impending deaths into valatory, or they distorted reality for the sake of precluding broader emancipatory challenges more. 16 to dropping human journey distinction detachment scientific cosmological significance of world facts about it. Absence clarity and ability to change historical course rates has been figured within discourse of any locked in course beyond humanity's willpower ready the act of the human enterprise as valid. Laborers person with to control and numbers without qualities and force the bias who gives biological wealth potential and machine discourse the almighty power to demand Muhammad's land is God by posture man delivered to him planet man for the production of resources. Resources. Didn't read the last sentence or the last part. Cool.
You good?
Yeah.
Stats of the alternative.
Unconditional.
What is the alternative?
It is very simple. It's to refuse the 1AC's racial ignorance in favor of deconstructing white IR. It explains that sort of discussions of the app are possible, but it requires a forefronting of an analysis of empire and race as part of IR.
Sure, that makes sense. Can the affirmative happen in the world of the alternative?
No.
It's
not as presented.
What does that mean?
It means like
Can the alternative agree with the mandate of the plan?
We disagree with no, not specifically.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's talk about these link arguments.
Sure.
The first piece of Agathongelou evidence, it talks about systematic politics of forgetting. Where's
The second one?
Sorry, the second one, yeah. Where is the app engaged in a process of forgetting?
Yeah, sure. Like the idea where you talk about U.S. history influences why it is a kind of diplomatic power misunderstands the way in which that history is premised on racial assumptions about sovereignty in the global order that we have excluded, and it also talks about how the 1AR argument about anti-racist reform, it explains that it's not redeemable, and it also talks about the way in which your description of like-minded states with shared identity, i.e. the Middle East, the United States, and the United States being able to lead those things are intellectual frames leveraged to quote centralize issues and security of the club with consequences for those.
A lot of words. I'm very confused about what that means. I'm confused about why the affirmative cannot agree that there's a racialized history tied.
Well, you haven't done that.
So is the link that the affirmative has not said there's a racialized history of violence?
Well, that's part of the link, but our argument is that your understanding of security and sovereignty is one that operates across a racial line, and your exclusion of it will always be
I want to talk about that second part. What aspect, can you point me to a line or section of the 1AC that you think has committed the securitization that you think is problematic, or that the critique thinks is problematic?
Yeah, sure. Your land evidence is talking about quote fears in Washington, which explains that the motivation for the app is premised on Western fear of kind of an unstable world rather than colonialism being intrinsic bad.
Okay, so the argument is the idea of fearing foreign threats in their existence.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. Is there ever an accurate depiction of foreign threats, or is every depiction of
we've made an argument that because we're in debate or just the app is not actually going to happen, so representations matter more, and attempts to exclude those are bad, which is harder.
That's fine. I didn't read the cyber war scenario.
I didn't really.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. That's good. Fear of Russia. I guess Russia not bad is what the 1NC believes.
That's a mischaracterization. Our argument is Western phobia of Russia bad. Russophobia, as the card describes.
Okay, I guess what does the piece of evidence think we should do? Actually, last question. Can you give me an example of what the alternative thinks would be a good idea, or does it disagree with the material?
It says research program focused on great powers would still be possible, but explicit study of empire and other politics would have to embrace that.
Gotcha. Starting correct. I don't know if I already asked what the status.
Yeah, unconditional.
Unconditional. Gotcha. critique think anti-blackness operates ontologically?
No, but it's not after pessimism. It
Okay.
says like the way to resolve this is different. Like
Okay.
it has a different understanding of what to do.
Gotcha.
Or sorry, to clarify that, it says that blackness is like constitutive of security studies, not necessarily.
Gotcha. Okay, 350 used. The order is the case and the critique.
Is that what?
Yeah, case, sorry, the case topicality critique. Sorry, what's up?
I said I was worried for a second.
Okay.
Is there a dog?
Yeah, I'm setting it. Cool, it's been set. Let me know.
Yeah.
Anyone knock it? Cool. The plan solves imminent risk escalation due to militarization and for proxy escalation by withdrawing provocative forces, otherwise use Iran wars inevitable, causes escalatory wars, triggers and rally for striking enters nuclear Middle Eastern war, which I was on Terford, and to go concession of the warning there's a 100% risk the plan solves an existential impact, which would be an impact filter for your values, and there's only a risk that the plan solves a guaranteed war, and a limited risk that the critique is able to solve everything they think is good. Now, the framing arguments. First, Brian McDonald, this is ridiculous. I didn't really understand what the one he was trying to explain here. Their argument is that that we need to be able to extend it in the 1 year, which we are doing, but we are not the identitarian analysis that they think we are. Our argument is not that identity is the only thing that matters, but they used to reject broad, sweeping theorizations of international relations that claim all of IR is racist, or claim that all of IR is built in problematic lines. Even if that's true, it neglects specificity, which is the only way that we can actualize material solutions to problems. The Rojas evidence not going for it, so it doesn't matter. But the Goldberg evidence, I didn't read this, so I will read it in the 1 ER. I will read it later, so I'll answer their argument to it here. Remember, their argument is exactly what Goldberg is explaining. The Goldberg evidence is an explanation of why anti-militarism efforts are occurring on racial lines. It explains how black collective movements have advocated against U.S. military presence. So when they say, quote unquote, we have not begun from an understanding of an anti-black global order, it is the equivalent of a link of omission. We also didn't say sexism is bad or that patriarchy is bad, which doesn't mean that we haven't confronted that analysis, because there's infinitely many things that we haven't confronted. So this is ridiculous. Substantial counter-confliction reducing division size, increment 8 the planning based on vision legislative intent planning reducing median division size minus 2% worse than racing 96 substantial one for the exponential substantial process activity defining substantially demands context sauce 98 definitions of potential of different meanings depending on the context of means logic not wholly to agree to satisfy a reasonable person unless imposed spiritual relative energy plays context. Warships are legally considered bases. This topicality interpretation is ridiculous. Per cell 1, naval forces, critical operational leaders to peacetime operational crimes of Christ warship and sovereign here to use worship of highly multi-base for areas and free political purposes. Military presence refers to truth bases and activities UIA no date present military perform use military activities are present on the use present including current activity police or wars. Military presence includes the Navy bow, negligible presence involves personal loss ships and stable aircraft. That proves that it accounts for US forces. Freeman 22 use military presence Middle East, Homeland, Secretary, Strike with nuclear parts, Marine Force, Strike with other warships, divided in the Middle East. Debatability outweighs precision. You should view it as a floor. Being in literature, anything else is arbitrary and applies linguistic and academic standards to debate. For affirmation, there are makes one app topical Kuwait, which means the topic is the same for 4 months, and clash different areas of presence have different nuances. Trading missions in Egypt for disorders and Turkey have distinct bases. App RBIs for speed, the time crunch. Why is forced to debate different topicality interpretation, which neglects from being able to engage different parts of the flow. If you think a topicality interpretation is true, you should hold them to going for it. And topical literature forces homogenization, unique nuance pressing issues. We're not saying we should win because we're topical. We're saying we should win because we're detracted from other parts of the flow. The critique framework determines the plan's desirability through the theoretic consequences of the plan. Only evaluate links to the app. Consequences: A, fairness that force the winner resource they can criticize influence random things. B, is it outweighs debates can have a game with wins and losses. And they can still wait just as the app causes. And our interpretation is best for clashing forces nuance testing around particular locus points of contestation, i.e. the mandate of the plan. Their framework interpretation is arbitrary because it says that we should weigh representations or arguments that those are tied to representation, and the only way a representation makes sense is if a consequence is attached to it, which answers their rep's first card that they read about being an object of research. We should still get to weigh consequences. 1 and C Chandler is so creatively highlighted. They've left out the part that says we aim to impose control, which is something the app solves. We inserted a re-highlighting which proves the app is a link term. Yes, certain threats are constructed and used to impose control, but the app is not an example of that. We're a regulation that limits control of the empire because the SACO is aiming to impose control on the Middle East, which is something the app gets rid of. Broad transformative demilitarization is not a static form of cruel optimism, but repurposes political hope to mobilize new political futures domestically and abroad. Goldberg 16, how to describe racial militarization, well, demilitarizing is a representation of social ecologies, balance, technological, cultural, focus, and motivating demilitarization, demilitarizing imagination, powers, and will be against obstacle, means mobilization, boundary logic, for militarization. The card there, I want you to hold them to the depiction of their arguments in CX. They said it was based on an understanding of foreign threats being wrong. They dropped the 1AC, which means our depiction of foreign threats is not incorrect. Permutation do both, and permutation do the alternative. We can agree that the project of the empire is one that occurs on racial lines and still think the affirmative is a good idea, which was all of the specificity framing above. Demilitarization is good and universally agreed upon to be a valuable end for black and brown people. The Russia-phobia link is ridiculous. We read evidence that indicates that Russia is aiming to be revisionist in the SACO, and they literally invaded Ukraine. Being afraid of Russia is not ridiculous, and we've just said that they're on the brink of being engaged in a conflict. Extinction outweighs and turns everything that was above to prerequisite to any form of value and destroys all coherent value structure that exists, which is a prerequisite to core, particularly black and brown.
Cool. Didn't read Hurley, only, dropped it. Only thing was RBIs.
Only thing? Only reason for guidance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
No nuke hurts or anything, I guess.
No. Good.
They should have given RBI to logical A to gateways to no way for being fair, which was a drop down into the argument. Also proves they meant this running point for debatability. B, chilling effect, rating RBIs, systematize theories, magnifies abuse. The RBIs also force prep skew, which is bad. In turns our offense for debaters running abusive positions will always be prepared for theory because they know coming to the round, but they'll need to defend their opponents cover. But by their pre-war prep into many possible cells, so allow debaters run RBIs go all in for theory solidifies the advantage of one committing the abuse, i.e. he had a bunch of answers to topicality and forces into it, forcing debaters to send off the stages to responding theory solves this problem by not allowing debaters to be able to win up their pre-round prep, the critique. They dropped the thesis claim of the Athens means it's game over, then you should just hang your hat on the academic evidence. International relations is premised on racial colonial understandings of sovereignty that require repeated investments in profit of colonialism, racial capitalism, implicit in IR creates responses that result in wars, coups, climate change, and converge an ongoing existential priority crisis, which is a drop thesis claim. Now, the link on impact turning their evaluation, the which statements are capable of leading and which are threats through selective reduction in premise and framing of the United States as the only country capable of a diplomatic strategy because the academic says it's the racist by nature practice in sorting who can lead and act as viable power by determining what country is fit for diplomacy, which country is fit for U.S. military presence, and which countries are the ones on the precipice of disaster, is a view from above that relies on deeming non-Western forms of life as unsettled civilization precisely because the United States fears instability caused by its own premise that it will cause, that it is able to withdraw in the first place, which is steeped in a racial logic. They're not withdrawing for any liberal reason, but rather only in the name of U.S. security. Vote negative, they all debate, Vote negative to reject the one you see. IR saturated with racial anxieties make cultivating relationships outside the frame of Western dominance impossible. The alt exists at the level of form and content. You must refuse rhetoric that facilitates a culture of Western supremacy. The permutation excuses content that we've won is racist and teaches them that they can keep getting away with it. Only rejecting the content as well forces them to grapple with the racist modes of research and scholarship. Even if they win, the plan is a good idea. You could bracket their prescribed action, vote negative to agree with the plan, refuse the representative form. This does not mean there's no positive consequences to the plan, but that they've described those consequences in a racist way that you must reject. Now, framework at the top. The one you see is a research project and epistemology come first. The implication of winning framework is that if we win a link which they've dropped a piece of academic evidence, you instantly vote negative. Interp debate at the top first. Reject the 2ER that says their interp is inclusive, not exclusive. Their interp will always crowd out discussions of race by asserting extinction of ways is a rhetorical tool that is used to crowd out emancipatory politics. Second, I'm impact turning, plan focus. If they drop any of these dissets, they lose. First is the ethics dissent. Star this as an answer to fairness. Any reason the one he sees underlying assumptions are anti-black should be a reason to vote negative, which they've dropped that their understanding of IR is premised on a version of U.S. sovereignty that is racist by nature. You should never be able to say it was anti-black blood or Abu Bakari evidence impact turns into exclusion. A race-focused IR analysis reproduces white supremacy, which means if they use the interp to exclude the link, you must reject the team. Their attempt alone to ignore anti-black assumptions through their model is sufficient to vote negative. The 2ER will say their interp is additive, then use case outweighs to exclude assumptions, i.e. anti-black, but case outweighs because remember, they've also conceded fiat is illusory, extinction will actually happen, but you can use your ballot to refuse proximate racism, which means the ballot can only solve instances of proximate racism while it cannot solve things like fairness. Now, the naturalization DA, reflexivity is impossible under their model because they exclude research that doesn't mimic Western liberal norms. Just ask yourself how many debates occur where the neg wins, the app is racist, but then the app wins because extinction outweighs or the link wasn't to plan. Voting app does not pass the plan, but it does endorse certain assumptions that the one is made. Third, their standards are wrong. First is fairness. Defending assumptions is predictable. The fact that you had preempts means you are ready for this debate. Infinite prep time outweighs any of their standards. It's the last tournament of the year. Obviously, they meticulously crafted their app, and if they haven't, it was just bad prep. Their model is worse. It's more unfair for the negative to debate the 10-second plan text alone because it enables shiftiness over core assumptions. The offense above also impact turns at B classes answered above, and they've dropped that links turn all of their class arguments out. They say that determine the plan's desirability through fiat consequences, i.e. the content will always determine the form. They've conceded our argument from you should remember our argument from above when making your decision that the kind of reps and scholarship that inform these things will always be crowded out by extinction or case outweighs, which means if we want a link to the reps which they have dropped, then it is easy negative ballot. Now, judge instruction. The K outweighs when you're framework because it controls the internal link justifications, representations, creating material implications of material political advocacy, i.e. Bush saying either you're with us or against us to the terrorists or calling people in the Middle East barbarians shape the war on terror both domestically abroad, i.e. their framing of Russia causes overly strong responses. The implication is that this turns their advocacy offense and takes out their argument that content determines the form of their advocacy because we've won a link and proves that they justify other investments in militarism because it is in the name of U.S. security and sovereignty and not anything else. Now, the extinction outweighs stuff. Did not read the card sovereignty do not give it to them rejected. Decentering extinction of whiteness requires an unlearning of white paradigms of impact calculus. They've dropped the more evidence which tells you it is a humanist fantasy to use the rhetorical frame of extinction to crowd out discussions of the global and. It is another link, which means that you can hang your hat on this to reject your ethical predisposition to extinction that ways divinity trained us to conflate consequentialist ethics with the util, and extinction is the only more frame. It is anti-black to slavery, Jim Crow, colonization, prison, industrial complex are all justified by white being maximizing the greater good. Independently, they've dropped the agathanational uniqueness argument. The world is already being damaged to the point where future generations' survival is no longer guaranteed, even if they stop one instance of conflict. Their model means other will emerge. Now, the all solves that by disconnecting war for balance. It's not serial kill logics, prioritize ongoing suffering over future threat. The inverse is true. They justify continued bloodshed to secure a white future. The no-link argument is wrong. Their evidence talks about, quote, fears in Washington being the reason for the plan, and the United States is a biased mediator, but the only one capable of control. And it talks about how the United States is structurally needs to be in control. Now, the permutation links are dissonance through severance. Our starting points are epistemically incompatible. It makes the permutation incoherent. Severance is a voting issue for severance. To the inclusion of the app does not make sense. What are you including? We've impact on the reps that applies to the second permutation they made, because including the all would be irrelevant, and the links demonstrate severance, which should always outweigh. Now, the gold-rating evidence is so heavily negative. Says contesting militarism is a way of being the best. Refuse instrumentalization, like using the state and investing in forms of sovereignty. The app is the technological and cultural thing that their evidence is criticized. If you go back and read it, it talks about how we need to refuse instrumentalism and adopt a praxis that can refuse these things, rather investing in the state, because that uses state sovereignty to refuse state sovereignty, which is reinvest in it.
Cool. Start. Case critique.
Cool.
Actually, it'll be just the critique.
Okay.
This scripted 2NR was very well designed to answer a 2ER that was going to go for the simple framework extinction outweighs. The issue is that I'm not going for that. I'm explicitly conceding the 1NC's framework and interpretation, and I'm going to win this debate, concede PI as illusory, and win this debate on the idea that the app representation of the plan are good. They spent 5 minutes on framework and less than a minute explaining a link argument and a reason why our method is bad, so I'll win this debate. There are 2 things the 2ER is going to win. First, that our theory of IR is a valuable heuristic to view the world, and second, that the plan is in line with the vision. Each of those 2 heuristics has 2 pieces of evidence to support it. First, the conceded Browning and McDonald evidence. The 2NR did not say the word Browning and McDonald once, and I extended it at the top of the 1ER. It is an explicit answer to their theory that they think Agantanshalu explains, and they've conceded a concession to it, which is that you should reject broad, sweeping claims about international relations. They might be right that IR is racist, but claiming that all of IR is racist is a terrible heuristic, because it doesn't tell us how we should apply specificity in that context. For example, IR being racist in the Middle East is distinct from IR being racist in the context of East Asia, so always saying that IR is built on the foundational principles of anti-blackness, even if it's correct, does not tell us what we should do in the face of that anti-blackness, which is why specificity in our depictions of the Middle East are good, because it outlines an instance in which the United States has solidified militaristic control against a region, i.e. the Middle East, and have gone against that. Second, they conceded specificity matters and that the affirmative is a way to work within the empire. They've dropped that the empire is always expansionary, but our argument is that the affirmative goes against that, because the reason the United States aims to impose control on the Middle East and the South Code is because they believe that they can always control the Middle East release, which is something the plan shifts away from. I don't know where the tuner answered this. It was a whole impact overview for like 6 minutes, and they just did not answer any of this. It answers the alternative, and it is a justification for permutation to do both. Their only answer for permutation to do both is that links are DAs. You dropped a linked term, which means you no longer have a link, and say that including the all would be irrelevant. They dropped that we are invaluable discursive practice. The second thing that I laid out at the beginning of the speech, we will win, the plan is in line with that vision, which is the Goldberg evidence. You should read it at the end of the round. They said it talks about anti-statist discourse. Our entire argument is that we agree that you can go against the grain of the state, and we agree that the state can be problematic, but our argument is that anti-statist movements have agreed that demilitarization is a valuable end to pursue, and the affirmative forces the state to make that action. It talks its points to black radical movements that have agreed that we should begin the process of demilitarizing for these groups to form movements and that go against the state. We can believe that the state is bad and still win this debate, because even if the state is bad, the state will always crack down on movements like the alternative, which is the reason why forcing the state to do certain things is done. I don't need to answer anything on framework. I agree fiat is illusory. It doesn't matter. I'm not going for extinction at ways. I'm just going for reasons why our depictions of conflict are good. I don't really know what to line by line. The tuner just read impact overviews for 6 minutes, but I'll try to do other things. They say the PERN is racist and teaches us we can get away with anything. You've dropped that your theory is worse because we have formulated a solution to anti-blackness that exists within the context of specificity. They've dropped that their theory is more essentializing because it aims to proclaim all of IR operates in the same way, which is ridiculously homogenizing because it neglects specificity and the way different tenets of IR work. It's all conceded. They don't have answers to any of this. Good debate.
Good debate.